Hi, everyone. I'm joined here by Krystyna Vozwiak, and we're going to talk a little bit about her heritage and why we're all here. Do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm sure we've met each other, probably in the church or in the coffee area. My name is Krystyna. I'm from Ukraine, from the city of Ivano-Frankivsk. It's the western part of Ukraine. And then I lived in Kyiv for about 10 years before I moved back to America. Pretty new to Rochester. I've been here for 1 full year. Also very new to St. Luke's, as my boyfriend was going here when he was little with his family. So then I joined in, and I'm really enjoying it here in this church and with the community. Everybody always talks to you, greets you, and it's been really nice for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And we're here to help out the people of Ukraine and the war effort and all that. Can you give us a little background on the whole the war and some of the history that's led up to it and maybe some of the cultural aspects of it?
For sure. And I think that's the first thing that people need to understand about this war, that the more you can learn of the history of the country, overall both countries, the easier it will be to understand this war. You know, people always portrayed us to be brotherly nations, but if you really learn the history of those two countries, Russia always oppressed Ukraine. We've always had problems. They've always oppressed my great-grandparents centuries to come. So for me as a Ukrainian, for my family, this war was never a surprise. We knew that Russia just always wants Ukraine not to exist, Ukrainians not to speak their language and not to have their independence. So I think, you know, people who are interested about this topic, it's important to really dive into history and understand the dynamic of both countries. And I think this war is also very important because it's about not only about Ukraine, it's about peace in Europe and about showing the world that oppressor cannot win, and you cannot let this happen in the middle of Europe to such a big country as Ukraine. It was the biggest European country and European continent before the invasion. We had the biggest land. They actually like to say the size, it's almost the size of Texas here in America. Yeah. So it's a very large country, and Russia invaded it, of course, again, didn't catch me by surprise, but it's a very stressful, horrible, and scary thing to live through. I could never, of course, we've read books about war, you know, when I was younger, and you always hear about it or you watch war movies, but living through it, I could never wish this upon anybody. It's horrendous pain not to only lose your friends, classmates, to have your mom being scared, your parents being scared and hearing explosions every day, but it's also the identity that somebody's coming to my house, to my home to ruin it. It's really hard every day living with that and comprehending that somebody is at my home ruining it. So I think it's, you know, it's a very traumatic situation, and you know, people here, like being in America, they see Ukraine as part of their news, you know, but it's my whole life. It's my whole heritage, as you said. It's my memories, it's my family, it's my friends. So it's much more than a news that lasts 2 minutes on your TV, you know? And I think a lot of people, you know, they think, oh, a lot of people who ask me, is it as bad as we see it on the news? I'm like, it's 100 times worse. Like hearing it from people who are at the front lines, my friends who are fighting, like they show a little part, but actually it's horrendous events going on there every day. So it's worth sharing and talking about. And I feel like for example, when I want to learn about something, I would learn from a person who is from there or who has a knowledge of that. So I think my power of speaking about it comes from me being Ukrainian, generations to come, knowing my history and having family there, you know?
Yeah, and when we were talking before, you talked also about them wanting to erase the cultural identity of,
I think that
your people too. I don't know if you can share some of that too, because I know that's really powerful and important for you, the language and culture and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Culture is a big thing, you know, in this whole war. It's not only about territories, it's also about language, as you said. So as soon as Russia invades the cities, they change the name of the cities to the Russian language, right? It's very important for them to put Russian on people, press Russian language and culture on our people. It's very hard to see. I'm My whole life I spoke Ukrainian, never once spoke Russian language because I knew it's the language of the oppressor who oppressed my great-grandparents, you know, my grandparents who lived through USSR, and it's a whole different topic, the history of USSR and how horrible it was. But my language that I get to speak today, which language is of Ukrainian, was forbidden over 60 times. So it's crazy to know that it lived to the day that I'm able to speak it. So I have so much respect for my language, and my kids will be speaking my Ukrainian language regardless where I continue my life, you know, just continuing the language and reading our literature, spreading our history and word is very, very important. And I think, you know, that's our biggest fight now. And there's so many Ukrainian music coming out now, Ukrainian artists, that it's very, you know, they tried to oppress us and we're actually blooming even more. We're releasing more music, we're releasing,
awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's very important. Everybody speaking Ukrainian now and understands that, you know, why it's so important to keep going with the language and with spreading our history and the true history, not the history that Russia tells the world.
Yeah. And that's a point of pride and something that you're really passionate about. I can tell.
For sure.
It really comes through. Hopefully you feel it too. But that gets us to the main reason we're here is we like to do this dinner and this appeal to help the people and your friends and family back home. You know, can you tell us a little why it's so important and what we can do to help?
Yeah. So for sure, like you guys having this dinner, I'm probably in Europe now playing my tournaments. I wish I was here and I wish I was joined by everybody. It would be amazing, like just eating our food and just talking about it. I'm so happy you guys are organizing it, so thank you for that. So I wish I was there. It's kind of sad I'm not going to be here, but hopefully I'll be representing Ukraine on a tennis court, and it's very meaningful for me as well. But I have obviously a lot of friends, guy friends who are fighting at the war, at the front lines. Some of who have passed, you know, which is very hard for me. But some of our girls have charitable foundations that help either displaced people, families with a lot of kids who had their houses ruined, they have nowhere to go, their father went to the war and they're left. So one of my friends has this charitable foundation who helps those families. They're in western part of Ukraine, where I'm from, and it's a calmer part of the country. There's explosions, but not as many because the territorial, they can't reach, the rockets cannot reach so far into Ukraine. So she's organized it there. They were starting from a little hotel, just renting rooms from these families, but then they bought out the hotel and they're helping these kids and families. It grew up to be a big charitable thing in Ukraine. And I think, you know, as I've said about the news, like maybe it's not talked about as much, especially when in the news you talk more about other conflicts in the world. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. You know, I hear from my mom every day how many explosions there are. She's walking to work with her coffee and it's super loud. It's just crazy to hear about it. So just if it's not on the news, it doesn't mean that it stopped or it calmed down. It's as horrible as it was, just the news work the way it works. So I think it's very important to help in any way possible, you know. I don't know how many millions of Ukrainians have been displaced. I'm not even going to start how many Ukrainians have died, lost their parents, brothers, friends, dads. It's just horrible amounts of people. And I think help in any way anybody can would be super, super helpful. And part of it, even listening to this, I think is crucial, learning more about Ukraine, you know, because people brush over it thinking, Russia just attacked Ukraine, but there's so much deeper and so much more meaningful than just, they attacked, you know? So listening, staying educated and helping, would it be donations or second step, and it's great to do that.
Well, hopefully we can start that tonight at the dinner with all of you, and we can celebrate such a rich culture and also learn quite a bit. And thank you so much for helping us get this all together and spurring us on and sharing your passion.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this community for helping organizing this and also talking about my homeland and trying to help all our people.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's enjoy.
We your